Welcome to the Introduction to CAD and CAE. In Freeform Modeling Part 3, you design a handlebar group for a bicycle in the Sculpt environment and the Patch workspace. After completing this lesson, you will be able to attach a sketch of a bicycle handlebar group to a design. In the Sculpt environment, create a freeform body using the sketch as a guide. Modify the design in the Patch workspace and create a solid body from the surface bodies. In the Model workspace, I'm clicking Create Form, then click OK. Then go to Insert Attached Canvas. Select the plane, then select Image. I'm going to the supplied image called Handle Grip, and dragging that out just to scale it up a bit. I like to set the canvas opacity to about 60, and toggle on Display Through, and click OK. I did scale up the sketch, but it's not the correct size. I'm going to go to Canvases, right-click, Calibrate. Select 2 points, and key in that value of 125 millimeters. Now it is the correct size. Click on Create, Cylinder, and the cylinder has to be on a different plane, so I'm going to turn that around, select that plane, and for the moment just use the origin as the center point. A diameter of 30. Click in the background, don't press Enter. Drag from right to left, so that it's approximately the correct size. Leave all the other values the same and click OK. Double-click on the cylinder, then right-click and select Edit Form, and drag it down so it's in a better position. That's good. Click on OK. Now we need to make that cylinder a little bit longer. You can see that edge, so we'll double-click on that edge, back to the front view, Edit Form, and then drag it to the right so it's a better size. And click OK. Now when I created the cylinder, I could have added symmetry. I'm adding symmetry now. Select one face on one side and then the other, and then click OK. And you'll see a line down the center of the cylinder, indicating symmetry. And I want to start editing the form based on the cylinder that I have and the sketch in the background. Select one face, then the other. I'm holding down the Shift key to multiple select. I'm going to be rotating and then moving. These are fairly big changes at the beginning of the design. As you get closer to the end, they'll become much smaller. Again, rotate and move. And I'm not worried about that top right-hand area there because we're going to be trimming that off. So that top edge looks good. Let's focus on the bottom edge. Normally I like to work with surfaces first of all, then edges, then points. In this case I've gone to an edge, just drag that up. Now back to a face and drag that down a little bit. And you start to see the workflow. Rotate. Move that into place. And very often when you move one, you have to go back and make a change to the previous one you created. I'm going to continue to work my way around this bottom edge until it closely matches the sketch. Select two faces, drag it down, then go to an edge. Using the arrow this time, which will give me a vertical or a horizontal if I select the other arrow. A little bit too far, so drag that back up and rotate somewhat. Select that last face, rotate it around until it matches, and drag it into position. So you can spend a fair amount of time on this, but keep in mind that sketch in the background is an approximate sketch. I'm going to click on Finish Form, and from Model, go to the Patch workspace. In Patch, I have a lot more flexibility in terms of working with these surfaces. We see there's currently one body, and I need to create that 2mm groove as shown in the sketch. Click on Sketch, select the plane, and from Sketch I'm going to go to Spline. With Spline you want to create as few points as possible. I'm actually going to go with 2. And then manipulate that spline till it matches the sketch in the background. When you click on the endpoints of the spline, you'll see these handles. You can move those up and down. Or what's really useful in this case is you can rotate them around. If you have too many points, it's difficult to control the smoothness of the spline. So at the moment I'm just moving that endpoint and then the handle, trying to match that spline as best as I can. Rotating it around. And again rotating it. I want to make sure that the endpoints are outside the body. So I spent another couple of minutes just making sure that spline was correct. Now I'm going to go to Offset, select the spline, and I can see that 2mm is what it needs to be, so I'll key in 2, and stop the sketch. Now I don't need to work on both halves of this design. So what I'm going to do is split it into 2 bodies. Go to Modify, split the body, select the body, and for the splitting tool, select the plane. Click OK. Now the body is still visible, so I'm going to hide that. So I'm now going to continue and go back to those splines. With the 2 splines, I want to go to Modify, and the first one is going to split the body. Select the body, and for the splitting tool, I want to select that top spline. There's a little checkbox there, Extend Splitting Tool. It's currently toggled on. You can see the effect of that. In this case, it wouldn't make any difference. I'll just leave it toggled on. So we've now created a 3rd body. Just toggling off the sketch. We don't need that at the moment. Back to Modify and Trim. I want to cut out the area between the 2 splines. So selecting that bottom spline, pausing the cursor, you can see it says select blank areas to remove. Select the area to remove and then click OK. And that creates a bit of a gap. So you can see those 3 bodies. What I want to do now is create a groove between those 2 edges. To create the groove, I'm going to go to Sketch, select the plane, and I want to project those 2 points. I'm eventually going to draw a small arc. Go to Project Include, Intersect. A little awkward here, so what I'm going to do is hold down the left mouse button for about a second or so, and then select Vertex. Same over here, hold down that left mouse button and select Vertex. Sketch, Arc, 3-point arc. There's my start point, my end point. Be careful you don't make the arc too large. You want it to stay within that open area, not go onto the other face. And stop the sketch. I want to sweep this around, so Create, Sweep. 2 options, Path and Guide Rail or Single Path. Path and Guide Rail is good for this one. Select the path. We don't want it to be the spline, we want it to be the edge, and chain selection should be toggled off. Press and hold to select the edge. Same workflow, press and hold and select the edge. And you can see the preview of the sweep. If required, you can drag that back. In this case, we want it to be the full distance of 1. So it's kind of a reference point. Anything less than 1 makes it smaller. There's a bit of a gap there, but I'm going to be trimming off that end and adding in a fillet, so it's not an issue. Using a similar workflow, this recessed 2mm area, turning off that body for the moment, I created a sketch, and a couple of splines. So I went to spline, created the first one, then offset the second one 2 millimeters. Turn that body back on. Same workflow, go to split body, select the body, then select the splitting tool, which will be the spline on the outside, so the wider one. Again, you see that extend splitting tool. And as we did before, we're going to go to modify and trim. We need to select our trimming tool, which will be the inside spline, and then the area to remove. Then click OK. So just as we did before, we now have a gap in there, and an extra body was created. Toggle off the sketch. Now we can go to Create, Offset. I want to create another body, offset 2 millimeters away from the original. So that's -2 in this case. Then hide the original body. I'm going to extend out this body so that there's no gap visible. You can see there's quite a gap from that 2 millimeter gap that I did create. So I'm going to extend, select the edge, not the face, and just drag it outwards. About 10 millimeters should work. Let's try that. So 10. Go to the front view. A little bit of a gap there. I don't think it'll be critical, but let's bump that up to 11. And then click OK. And the extend type was natural, which is the default. So you can see that gap and that body offset back 2 millimeters. I want to create a sweep around here to close that up. So to do that, I have to construct a plane. At the moment, there isn't a plane inside that area that I'm working on. So I'm just going to drag it into that general area. It doesn't have to be exact, as long as it's inside that area. Click OK. Now I can create a sketch. Select the plane. Click on Slice, which will show you the exact area where the plane is. I want to project that point. And that's going to be the point where I'll start the line. Go to Line. So a line about 6 millimeters long and an angle of 60 is shown. Should work. Toggle off Slice and then stop the sketch. We want to just double check that line. Seems to work. You can see the darker color and then it disappears in behind that face. Go to Sweep, and this time the type is Single Path. That's my profile, and the path is the outside edge on the original body. Click OK, and when you get to Preview, you know it's working. Now, there is some extra material, so we need to go to Modify Trim. Select my first trim tool, then the material I want to remove. And there's still some extra, a little awkward to see sometimes, but go back to Repeat Trim, select, and select again, and click OK. So that's cleaned it up quite nicely. So that 2 millimeter setback has been created. To finish this off, I closed the ends. Let's have a look at how I did that. On the timeline, dragging it back to just before I created the sketch. Now moving forward to the sketch. So I created the sketch, which was a spline and a straight line. For the straight line, I made sure it was just to the right of that little line. And for the spline, I started outside the body. Make sure that this is inside the body. If it's outside, the trimming won't work. And I only used 3 points for that spline. I then extruded those 2 lines and used trim to finish it off. Turning off that sketch. A couple of more things to do. Going to Create, Mirror. I want to select bodies. There's a number of options there. So pattern type is bodies using a window select. My mirror plane will be through the middle, and click OK. So now by using mirror, I didn't have to worry about creating any of that information on the back. Now I have all these bodies, so what I need to do is modify that. Go to Stitch, again Window Select, 14 of them, and click OK. So this will create a solid body for me. See, all those bodies have now been compressed into that one by stitching. Back to the model workspace, and that is now a solid model. So there was one other little feature that had to be created. It was the recess that I created, and the create opening for clamp node. So this allows this grip to clamp onto the handlebar. I decided to do this in the model workspace. Hiding the sketch, you can see I cut that out, and I also added some fillets. The handlebar comes through this area, and that grip will then clamp onto the handlebar grip. So I can now continue with the design of the rest of the handlebar grip.